My father's voice echoed in my mind as I stood on the observation deck of the QallusSpaceport, watching the sleek, silver vessels descend from the depths of space. His words had always held a certain mystique, a tale passed down through generations, whispered around campfires and recounted in hushed tones in the corridors of power. It was the story of humanity, the enigmatic beings from the distant planet Earth who had traversed unfathomable distances to stumble upon our colonial empire, perched on the brink of annihilation. In our corner of the galaxy, the solar system was dominated by the mighty Xiens, a sentient solar planet whose luminous glow bathed the 10 ring planets in life-giving energy. The Xiens, with its sentient consciousness, wielded control over the distribution of solar energy, dictating which nations would bask in its warmth and which would be left to wither in the cold darkness of space. To obtain a full solar year's worth of energy, a planet must offer up a tribute of natural resources and treasures, a tithe measured in the weighty units of newtons of power. For some nations, this burden proved insurmountable, leading to their demise. Others teetered on the edge of extinction, their resources drained and their people languishing in poverty. And then came the humans. Their arrival sparked hope among the downtrodden and fear among the powerful. For the first time in eons, a force had arrived in our midst with the potential to challenge the supremacy of the Xiens and reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. As news of the Earthlings' arrival spread, whispers of anticipation and trepidation rippled through the corridors of power on each of the ring planets. What did the humans seek? Were they allies or adversaries? And most importantly, could they offer salvation to those on the brink of despair? On the ring planet of Callus, where I stood overlooking the shimmering skyline of our capital city, the arrival of the humans was met with cautious optimism. Our resources were dwindling, our people struggling to survive under the oppressive weight of the Xiens' demands. Perhaps the newcomers held the key to our salvation. I joined the throngs of curious onlookers as the humans made their grand entrance, their sleek ships gliding through the void with an elegance that belied their formidable power. As they descended upon our world, I couldn't help but feel a surge of excitement mingled with apprehension. What would they make of our plight? Would they offer aid, or would they merely exploit our desperation for their own gain? The leader of the human delegation, a woman with eyes that gleamed with intelligence and determination, stepped forward to address the gathered crowd. Her words were translated into our native tongue by a device strapped to her wrist, and as her voice echoed through the square, a hush fell over the assembled masses. "We come in peace," she declared, her voice ringing out with conviction. "We have traveled across the vast expanse of space to offer our assistance to those in need. We understand the challenges you face, and we are committed to helping you overcome them." Her words struck a chord with the people of Callus, igniting a flicker of hope in their hearts. Could it be true? Could the humans truly offer us a lifeline in our darkest hour? As the days turned into weeks, the humans worked tirelessly alongside our own scientists and engineers, sharing their knowledge and technology in a collaborative effort to harness the resources of our planet and break free from the shackles of the Xiens' control. Slowly but surely, we began to see progress. New sources of energy were discovered. Technologies that had once seemed like distant dreams became reality, and the people of Callus dared to believe that a brighter future was within their grasp. But the Xiens was not content to relinquish its hold on power without a fight. As rumors spread of our burgeoning alliance with the humans, the sentient solar planet unleashed its fury upon us, unleashing devastating solar storms and sending its minions to sow chaos and destruction. The council chamber of Callus buzzed with tension as my father, council member Thalos, stood before his peers pleading for reason and unity. But his words fell on deaf ears, drowned out by the clamor of fear and distrust that gripped our leaders. The people of Callus welcomed the arrival of the humans with open arms, eager to embrace the promise of cooperation and progress. But our leaders, entrenched in their paranoia and beholden to the oppressive regime of the Xiens, refused to see the potential salvation that lay before us. For generations, the Xiens had held sway over our solar system, its sentient consciousness dictating the flow of solar energy and exerting control over the lives of billions. The leaders of Callus, fearful of losing the favor of this brutal solar empire, succumbed to their own insecurities and abandoned the alliance with the humans. As my father spoke, his voice filled with passion and conviction, I couldn't help but feel a sense of frustration and despair. How could they turn their backs on the hope that the humans had offered us? How could they forsake the chance to break free from the shackles of oppression and forge a new destiny for our people? The air in the council chamber was heavy with tension as my father, council member Thalos, stood before the gathered leaders of Callus, his voice ringing out with conviction as he delivered his impassioned plea. For too long, we have lived in fear and servitude, shackled to the whims of the Xians and beholden to their oppressive regime, my father declared, his eyes blazing with determination. But the arrival of the humans has shown us that there is another way, a path to freedom and self-sufficiency that lies within our grasp. His words sparked murmurs of disbelief and skepticism among the council members, their faces twisted with doubt and uncertainty. For generations, we had relied on the gens for the solar energy that sustained our existence, believing ourselves to be powerless without their benevolence. But my father knew differently. He had seen firsthand the ingenuity and resourcefulness of the humans, witnessed the marvels of their technology, and the boundless potential that lay within their grasp. And he was determined to share that knowledge with our people, to lead them out of the darkness of ignorance and into the light of self-reliance. The humans have shown us that we do not need the empire to survive, my father continued, his voice unwavering. Through years of technological advancement, they have harnessed the power of solar energy and stored enough to sustain themselves for millennia, if not eons. They have proven that we too can achieve independence and autonomy, if only we have the courage to seize it. His words hung in the air like a challenge, daring the council members to embrace change and embrace the unknown, but the response was tepid at best, the counselors clinging to their fears and insecurities like a lifeline. It is folly to turn our backs on the empire, one counselor interjected, his voice dripping with scorn. Without their protection, we would be vulnerable to the whims of the galaxy, at the mercy of any who seek to exploit our weakness. We cannot afford to take such risks. But my father refused to be deterred. He knew the change would not come easily, that there would be obstacles and opposition at every turn. But he also knew that the stakes were too high to ignore, that the survival of our people depended on our ability to break free from the chains of oppression and forge our own destiny. And so, he continued to advocate for change, tirelessly lobbying the council and rallying support among the people of Callus. Slowly but surely, his efforts began to bear fruit, as more and more Calluses began to embrace the idea of independence and self-sufficiency. But the road ahead was fraught with peril as the Xians, sensing the threat to their dominance, unleashed their fury upon us with ever-increasing intensity. Solar storms ravaged our world, and their minions sought to undermine our efforts at every turn. Yet, in the face of adversity, my father remained resolute, his faith in the future unwavering. And as the tide of public opinion began to turn in favor of change, he knew that victory was within our grasp. And so, on the eve of our greatest trial, as the forces of the Xians gathered for one final assault, my father stood before the people of Callus, his voice ringing out with hope and defiance. "We stand on the brink of a new dawn," he declared, his words echoing across the plains of our world. "Together, we will cast off the shackles of oppression and embrace the promise of a future where we are masters of our own destiny. The road ahead will be difficult, but I have faith in our strength and resilience. Together, we will build a world where fear and servitude are but distant memories, and where the light of freedom shines bright." And as the people of Callus cheered in response, I knew that my father's vision would soon become a reality, that the dawn of a new era was upon us, and that nothing could stand in the way of our determination to seize our destiny. But the council remained unmoved, their eyes clouded with fear and uncertainty. They could not see beyond the immediate threats that loomed on the horizon, blind to the possibilities that lay beyond the confines of their narrow-mindedness. As the days turned into weeks, I watched helplessly as the rift between humans and Colossus grew wider, the once promising alliance crumbling before my eyes. The humans, bewildered by our sudden withdrawal, retreated to their ships, their expressions a mixture of disappointment and resignation. And so, once again, humans and Colossus became strangers in the vast expanse of space, our paths diverging as we retreated into our respective corners of the galaxy. The dreams of cooperation and progress faded into obscurity, replaced by the bitter reality of isolation and distrust. But even as our leaders turned their backs on the hope of a brighter future, there were those among us who refused to surrender to despair. My father, undeterred by the Council's rejection, continued to advocate for reconciliation and unity, his unwavering determination serving as a beacon of hope in the darkness. Together with a small group of like-minded individuals, we formed a clandestine resistance, determined to defy the tyranny of the Science and forge our own path forward. In secret, we reached out to our human allies, renewing the bonds of friendship and cooperation that had been so callously discarded by our leaders. Despite the dangers that lurked in the shadows, we refused to abandon our belief in a better future, a future where humans and Colossus stood side by side as equals, united in our shared quest for freedom and prosperity. And so, as the stars glittered in the vast expanse of space, I vowed to honor my father's legacy and continue the fight for a tomorrow where fear and distrust would be replaced by hope and solidarity. For in the end, it is our actions, not our fears, that define who we are and shape the destiny of our universe. The arrival of Comet Arius 236578 sent shockwaves through the galaxy, igniting a sense of urgency and dread unlike anything the inhabitants of the solar system had ever experienced. The comet, a massive and malevolent force of nature, hurtled towards our corner of the cosmos with relentless speed, its destructive power poised to lay waste to everything in its path. As the news spread, panic gripped the hearts of billions. The people of Callus and the surrounding ring planets watched in horror as the comet grew ever closer, his ominous presence casting a shadow of despair over our world. And in our darkest hour, with the fate of our solar system hanging in the balance, all eyes turned to the mighty Xianxi, the undisputed rulers of our empire, for salvation. For centuries, the Xianxi had stood as the guardians of our solar system, their technological prowess and military might unmatched by any other force in the galaxy. And now, as the threat of Arius 236578 loomed large on the horizon, they were our last hope, our final line of defense against the encroaching darkness. But amidst the chaos and confusion, there were those who refused to surrender to despair, who dared to believe that even in the face of overwhelming odds, there was still hope. And so, a bold plan was hatched, a desperate gamble that would pit the combined might of all the 10 rings in the Empire against the cosmic fury of the comet. The Empire set to work constructing a massive array of solar-powered thrusters designed to harness the energy of our sun and propel us towards the heart of the comet. But even as we worked tirelessly to prepare for the coming battle, the specter of doubt loomed large in our minds. Would our efforts be enough to stop the comet in its tracks? Or were we merely delaying the inevitable, clinging to false hope in the face of certain doom? As the day of reckoning drew near, we stood on the brink of history, ready to face our destiny head-on. And then, as the comet loomed ever closer, casting its ominous shadow over our world, we activated the thrusters and set our course for the heart of the cosmic beast. As the days passed, and the comet Arius 236578 loomed ever closer, a sense of unease settled over the 10-ring planets like a shroud. The signs of impending doom were all around us, stark reminders of our vulnerability in the face of the cosmic threat that hurtled towards us with relentless speed. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there was one constant that we had always relied upon: the mighty empire of Xiens, rulers of our solar system and guardians of our safety. For generations, they had stood as a beacon of strength and stability, their vast resources and formidable military might serving as a bulwark against the dangers that lurked in the depths of space. But now, as the comet drew ever nearer and the signs of the Empire's abandonment became impossible to ignore, our faith in our protectors began to waver. The once constant stream of communication from the central government fell silent, leaving the inhabitants of the 10 ring planets in darkness about what was happening. And then, the soldiers stopped returning. Families waited anxiously for news of their loved ones, but all communication was cut short, leaving them to wonder and worry about their fate. Rumors spread like wildfire, whispers of betrayal and abandonment that filled the air with a sense of despair. And then the broadcast came. Emperor Leech III, the ruler of the Science Empire, appeared on screens across the solar system, his expression grave as he addressed the populace. "I come before you today with a heavy heart," he began, his voice echoing through the halls of power and reverberating in the hearts of all who listened. "For too long, we have failed to live up to our duty as protectors of the 10 ring planets. Our hubris and arrogance have blinded us to the true extent of the dangers that threaten us. And now, we must face the consequences of our actions." He paused, his gaze sweeping over the assembled throngs of people, his eyes filled with sorrow and regret. "The comet Arius 236-578 approaches, its destructive power poised to lay waste to everything in its path," he continued. "But fear not, for the Science Empire shall not abandon you in your hour of need. We have made arrangements to ensure the safety of our people, to protect them from the coming cataclysm." And then the truth was revealed. The Science, with its sentient consciousness and vast power, had the ability to move itself away from harm's way. And so, it projected to shift its position, to move itself out of the path of the comet and leave the 10 ring planets defenseless in its wake. As the implications of the Emperor's words sank in, a sense of betrayal and abandonment swept through the populace like a tidal wave. The Science, our once mighty protectors, had forsaken us, leaving us to face the coming apocalypse alone. And with the failure of the human alliance and the collapse of our hopes for salvation, there seemed to be no hope left for survival. The darkness closed in around us, the weight of despair crushing our spirits as we resigned ourselves to our fate. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, there were those among us who refused to surrender to despair, who clung to the flicker of hope that still burned within their hearts. For as long as there was breath in their bodies, they would fight on, defying the darkness and embracing the light of hope that still shone bright amidst the encroaching shadows. And so, as the comet Arius 236-578 hurtled towards us with unstoppable momentum, we stood united in our determination to defy fate and forge our own destiny. For even in the darkest of times, the flame of hope can never truly be extinguished. And as long as it burns within us, there is always the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. As the news of the Science Empire's betrayal spread throughout the 10 ring planets, despair threatened to consume us all. The once mighty protectors of our solar system had abandoned us in our hour of need, leaving us to face the impending cataclysm of Comet Arius 236-578 alone. But amidst the despair, my father, a beacon of hope in the darkness, refused to surrender to despair. Instead, he rallied the leaders of the 10 ring planets and called upon all able-bodied men to join the fight for survival. From the golden shores of Au to the serpent-infested jungles of Serfant, from the twin planets of Kolu and Kola to the enigmatic depths of Ocean Sea, warriors from every corner of the solar system answered the call to arms. They came with hearts filled with determination and resolve, ready to stand united against the encroaching darkness. But even as our ranks swelled with the addition of these brave souls, it became painfully clear that it would not be enough to face the cosmic threat that loomed on the horizon. For the comet Arius 236-578 posed a danger unlike anything we had ever faced before, and to stand any chance of survival, we would need more than just warriors on the battlefield. We needed scientists to unravel the mysteries of the comet and uncover its weaknesses, engineers to devise weapons capable of piercing its formidable defenses, and strategists to chart a course of action that would lead us to victory. We needed guardians to protect the young, the elderly, and the infirm as they sought refuge on Thyper, the last planet in the line of defense. And we needed soldiers, brave and fearless, to stand firm in the face of the comet's onslaught and defend our solar system with their lives. But the task before us was daunting, and the odds seemed insurmountable. The Gens Empire, in its cowardice and betrayal, had taken with it almost all of the experienced soldiers and scientists, leaving us ill-equipped to face the coming storm. How could we hope to stand against the might of the cosmos with only our determination and courage to guide us? Yet, in the face of overwhelming odds, my father refused to waver. He knew that even in the darkest of times, there was always hope to be found, and as long as we stood united, there was nothing that we could not overcome. And so, with a heavy heart and a steely resolve, he set about marshaling our forces and preparing for the battle that lay ahead. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, our preparations continued unabated. Scientists toiled tirelessly in their laboratories, seeking to unlock the secrets of the comet and find a way to bring it down. Engineers worked feverishly to construct weapons capable of piercing its formidable defenses, while strategists devised plans and tactics to maximize our chances of success. But even as our preparations reached their climax, the comet drew ever closer, its massive form blotting out the stars and casting a shadow of dread over our world. And as the day of reckoning loomed on the horizon, we knew that the time had come to make our stand, to face our destiny with courage and determination. And so, as the comet Arius 236578 hurtled towards us with unstoppable momentum, we stood united on the battlefield, our hearts filled with hope and our spirits unbroken. For even in the face of overwhelming odds, there is always hope to be found. And as long as we stand together, there is nothing that we cannot overcome. We stand together regardless of the fact that we are aware we stand absolutely no chance. As the comet Arius 236578 hurtled towards our solar system, casting a shadow of fear and uncertainty over the 10 ring planets, a beacon of hope emerged from the depths of space. The human transmission. It was the voice of their leader, President Barda, a woman of wisdom and strength who spoke with conviction and resolve. Her words resonated across the cosmos, reaching every corner of our solar system, from the bustling streets of Callus to the golden shores of Au, from the serpent-infested jungles of Serpent to the twin planets of Colu and Kola, from the enigmatic depths of Oceancia to the pristine skies of Auxier, from the volcanic plains of Vatu to the tranquil shores of Thiprior. In her speech, President Barda assured us that the humans were here to help, that they would stand by our side and lend us their strength until the threat of the comet was eradicated. Her words filled our hearts with hope and renewed our resolve to stand united against the encroaching darkness. For my father, who had long believed in the indomitable spirit of humanity, the arrival of the humans was a cause for celebration. He had regaled me with stories of their resilience and determination, of how they had overcome every obstacle and tyranny that had stood in their way throughout the ages. And now, as we faced the greatest threat our solar system had ever known, he was filled with a sense of hope and optimism that bordered on euphoria. They will not abandon us, he assured me, his voice filled with conviction. With their science and military power, we stand a chance against the comet and any other threat that may come our way. And indeed, his confidence was infectious. As news of the human transmission spread throughout the 10 ring planets, a sense of joy and relief swept through the populace, washing away the lingering doubts and fears that had plagued us in the wake of the Gens Empire's betrayal. Even those leaders who had been reluctant to accept the aid of the humans, fearing retribution from the tyrannical empire, now saw reason to set aside their differences and unite in the face of a common enemy. For in the end, survival was all that mattered, and if the humans could offer us a chance at salvation, then it was a chance worth taking. And so, with renewed hope and determination, We welcomed the humans with open arms, embracing them as allies and friends in our darkest hour. Together, we stood united against the cosmic threat that loomed on the horizon, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead with courage and resilience. For in the end, it was not the might of our weapons or the strength of our armies that would determine our fate, but the power of unity and cooperation, the willingness to stand shoulder to shoulder and face our fears together. And as long as we remained united in our determination to overcome the odds, there was nothing in the universe that could stand in our way. As the days passed, and the threat of Comet Arios 236578 loomed ever closer, the people of the 10 ring planets watched with bated breath as the human troops finally arrived, heralding a new era of hope and cooperation in our struggle for survival. I stood on the observation deck of our planetary defense station, watching with awe and wonder as the human warships appeared on the horizon, their sleek and formidable forms, cutting through the darkness of space with effortless grace. Thousands upon thousands of ships filled the void, their numbers stretching as far as the eye could see, until the counting finally stopped at an astonishing 5,432 vessels. But the humans had not come alone. Alongside their warships, they had brought with them a vast array of advanced transport ships, each one equipped to ferry women, children, and the elderly from all 10 ring planets to the safety of Thipur, the last bastion of defense against the coming cataclysm. Medships, specially stationed in the Oxyere planet, stood ready to provide aid and assistance to the wounded during battles, while science ships conducted experiments and research to uncover the secrets of the comet and find a way to defeat it once and for all. With these additional ships numbering up to 10,000 in total, the citizens of the 10 ring planets finally found themselves at rest, knowing that help had arrived and that they would not have to face the coming storm alone. And at the helm of this mighty fleet stood President Barda, the leader of the Human Alliance, who wasted no time in convening a meeting with all the heads of the planets to reassure them of their intentions. "We did not come to colonize you," President Barda declared, her voice ringing out with conviction. "We came to share our knowledge and resources, to stand with you in your time of need and help you overcome the challenges that lie ahead. Together, we will face the comet and emerge victorious. For united, we stand. Divided, we fall." Her words were met with resounding applause and cheers from the assembled leaders, who had never before felt such reassurance and confidence in the face of impending doom. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, there was hope, real and tangible, that we would not only survive the coming catastrophe, but emerge stronger and more united than ever before. And so, as the human troops set about their preparations, and the people of the 10 ring planets began to board the transport ships bound for Thipur, a sense of optimism and determination filled the air. The battle ahead would be long and arduous, but with the help of our newfound allies, we knew that victory was within our grasp. For in the end, it was not the size of our fleet or the strength of our weapons that would determine our fate, but the power of unity and cooperation, the willingness to stand together and face our fears as one. And as long as we remained united in our resolve to overcome the odds, there was nothing in the universe that could stand in our way. With the arrival of the human troops and their advanced technology, the 10 ring planets found themselves thrust into a whirlwind of activity as preparations for the impending battle against Comet Arius 236578 went into full swing. Now, more than ever, it was crucial for the humans to share their plans and knowledge with us, to teach us how to harness the power of their machines and weaponry in our fight for survival. As all available able-bodied men were dispatched to various ships and duties, the true scope of the preparations became apparent. Some were sent on ground duty, led by the highest-ranked military generals of each planet. For instance, those dispatched to Callus, whether human or native to one of the other planets, would be under the command of my father, the General of Callus. Together, they would form the backbone of our ground forces, ready to defend our planets against any threat that might arise. Others were assigned to the transport ships, where they would aid in the movement of civilians to Thyper, the last bastion of defense against the comet. These ships were equipped not only with the latest in transportation technology, but also with amenities designed to make the journey as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. From solemn human music to art, culinary delights, and more, passengers were treated to an experience they could never have imagined on their home planets. Still, others found themselves in the medbay, on Oxyere, where they would learn from the Earth doctors the art of healing with solar abilities. Using advanced techniques and technology, these doctors could heal wounds with astonishing speed, allowing soldiers to return to the battlefield in under 10 minutes. It was a skill that would prove invaluable in the days to come, as casualties mounted and the need for swift medical attention became ever more pressing. And then there were those assigned to the warrior ships, where they would learn how to use human weapons, drones, and machines to defend against the comet. From the intricacies of piloting a fighter craft to the precision of firing a plasma cannon, these soldiers would undergo intensive training to prepare them for the rigors of combat in the cold depths of space. But perhaps the most awe-inspiring aspect of the preparations was the presence of the war engines aboard each warship. These powerful machines, fueled by synthetic solar energy, had the ability to create smaller warships at an astonishing rate. Each war engine could produce hundreds of minuscule warships in a single day, allowing thousands of soldiers to fight in their own self-contained battleships against the comet. As the days passed and the preparations reached their climax, a sense of unity and determination swept through the ranks of the 10 ring planets. We knew that the battle ahead would be long and arduous, but with the help of our newfound allies and the power of cooperation, we were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As part of the COWERED delegate, dispatched to the human ships in preparation for the battle against Comet REUs 236578, I found myself aboard one of the science vessels alongside delegates from all 10 planets. Our mission was clear: to study the comet, analyze its composition, and uncover any weaknesses that could be exploited in order to destroy it. Leading our team was Dr. Wellington, an esteemed human scientist with a wealth of knowledge in the fields of astronomy, astrophysics, and technological advancement. With his guidance, we delved into the depths of human science, learning everything we could about the comet and the challenges that lay ahead. Dr. Wellington explained to us that the comet had first appeared on human radar centuries ago, its presence faint and fleeting as it streaked across the cosmos at unimaginable speeds. Despite the difficulty in tracking its movements, humans had been studying it diligently ever since, piecing together whatever information they could glean from its fleeting appearances. We may not know much about the comet, Dr. Wellington admitted, but what we do know is that it poses a grave threat to all life in its path. That's why we're here, to help any civilization it faces, regardless of where they come from. His words struck a chord with us, reminding us that in the face of adversity, it was cooperation and unity that would see us through. For too long, the 10 ring planets had been divided by fear and mistrust. But now, in the face of a common enemy, we had come together as allies and friends. And as we delved deeper into our studies, analyzing data and running simulations, a sense of camaraderie and purpose filled the air. We were not just scientists from different planets. We were comrades in arms, united in our quest to save our solar system from destruction. As the days turned into weeks and our understanding of the comet grew, so too did our determination to find a way to defeat it. We pored over every piece of data, scrutinized every hypothesis, and debated every course of action, knowing that the fate of our solar system hung in the balance. But amidst the chaos and uncertainty, there was one thing that remained constant: our unwavering resolve to stand together and face whatever challenges lay ahead. For in the end, it was not the power of our weapons or the strength of our armies that would determine our fate, but the unity of our minds and the courage of our hearts. And as we prepared to face the greatest threat our solar system had ever known, I knew that together we would emerge victorious. For united we stand, divided we fall. And in the face of adversity, there was nothing that could break our resolve. As the fateful day arrived and Comet Areas 236578 loomed ominously on the horizon, the inhabitants of the 10 ring planets stood ready to make their first stand against the encroaching threat. Months of intense training and preparation had brought us to this moment, and as the comet drew closer, anticipation and fear gripped our hearts. The transportation delegates had worked tirelessly to evacuate the citizens of the first 3 planets in the path of the comet: the golden planet of Au, the hermaphrodite planet of Pharos, and Oceancia, the water planet. But despite their best efforts, not everyone had been able to escape in time, and as the comet drew nearer, the transport team was forced to halt their operations and leave the rest to the mercy of the approaching cataclysm. With the evacuation complete, it fell to the military forces to make their stand against the comet. Millions of mini-ships were deployed in a strategic formation, forming a formidable barrier in the path of the oncoming threat. Each ship was manned by brave soldiers from all 10 planets, ready to give their lives in defense of their homes and loved ones. For a time, it seemed as though our plan might succeed. The sheer number of ships and the precision of their formation gave us hope that we might be able to destroy the comet before it could reach our planets. But then, disaster struck. The science team detected a sudden spike in photon energy emanating from the comet, a sign that it had become sentient and was preparing to defend itself. Before they could send out a warning, it was too late. The comet unleashed a powerful photon flare that engulfed the entire fleet, tearing through the ranks of our ships with devastating force. I watched in horror from the science monitors as the once mighty fleet was decimated before my eyes. Ships were torn apart, their hulls rent asunder by the ferocity of the comet's attack. Those few vessels that managed to survive and make it back to their harbors were wrecks beyond recognition, their crews lost to the void of space. And then, with a deafening roar, the comet crashed into the first 3 planets with cataclysmic force, obliterating them and everything in their path in an instant. The golden shores of Au, the bustling streets of Pharos, the tranquil waters of Oceancia, all were consumed by the relentless fury of the comet, leaving nothing but devastation in its wake. As the dust settled and the echoes of destruction faded away, a profound sense of loss and despair washed over me. We had failed in our first stand against the comet, and now the consequences of our failure lay scattered across the surface of 3 planets, their once vibrant civilizations reduced to nothing more than ash and rubble. But amidst the despair, there was also a flicker of determination, a resolve to honor the memory of those we had lost by continuing the fight, by standing united against the forces of darkness that threatened to consume us. For in the face of adversity, it was not the strength of our weapons or the power of our armies that would determine our fate, but the courage and resilience of those who refused to surrender to despair. And so, as we mourned the loss of our fallen comrades and surveyed the devastation wrought by the comet, we vowed to press on to continue the fight until our solar system was safe once more. For united we stood, and united we would remain, even in the darkest of times. In the wake of the devastating loss of 3 planets, Au, Pharos, and Oceancia, our solar system stood reeling, its inhabitants grappling with the harsh reality of our diminished defenses and the staggering loss of life. With only 7 planets remaining in our defense system, the weight of our failure hung heavy upon us, driving home the sobering truth that our enemy was relentless and unforgiving. As the medical team worked tirelessly to tend to the wounded and the dying, the halls of the medbays echoed with the sounds of anguish and desperation. Doctors and nurses moved with frantic urgency, their hands stained with blood as they fought to save as many lives as they could. But despite their best efforts, countless souls were lost upon the operating tables, their lives snuffed out in the blink of an eye by the merciless onslaught of the comet. I watched in silent despair from the monitors aboard the science ship, my heart heavy with grief for those who had been lost and for the families left behind to mourn their passing. The faces of the fallen flickered across the screens before me, their names etched in my memory as a somber reminder of the cost of war. But even as the medical team struggled to stem the tide of death and destruction, the military forces were faced with their own challenges. The loss of several central warships in the explosion had dealt a crippling blow to our ability to produce smaller warships, leaving us with a diminished fleet and a sense of vulnerability that hung like a shadow over our defenses. Amidst the chaos and despair, President Barda of the Human Alliance emerged as a beacon of hope, her voice cutting through the darkness with a clarity and determination that belied the gravity of our situation. Instructing the transport ships to move swiftly to the next planets in line, she issued a clear directive to all aboard the science ships. Brute force alone would not be enough to end this war. We must study everything we can about this comet, President Barda declared, her words echoing with the weight of truth. We must uncover its weaknesses and exploit them to our advantage, lest we face the same fate as those who have come before us. Our enemy is formidable, but we are not without our own strengths. Together, we will find a way to stop this comet in its tracks and ensure that no more lives are lost to its insatiable hunger for destruction. And so, as the transport ship set course for the twin planets of Colu and Kola, I knew that the true battle had only just begun. For in the crucible of adversity, it was not the strength of our weapons or the size of our fleets that would determine our fate, but the resilience and ingenuity of those who refused to surrender to despair. And as we prepared to face the next phase of the war, I vowed to do everything in my power to ensure that our solar system would emerge victorious, no matter the cost. As the battle-weary inhabitants of the twin planets, Colu and Kola, braced themselves for the onslaught of Comet Arius 236578, the science team aboard the human ships worked tirelessly to devise a plan to stop the relentless advance of the comet. But with each passing day, it became increasingly clear that our options were limited, and the odds of success grew ever slimmer. One of the first suggestions put forward by the science team was to attempt to exhaust the plasma energy at the core of the comet. However, further study revealed that the energy was inexhaustible, generated continuously at the center of the comet like an eternal flame. It was a futile endeavor, for no amount of firepower could hope to deplete the boundless well of energy that powered the comet's destructive advance. Another idea was to use the battleships to form a Faraday cage around the comet, or to unleash an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, powerful enough to disrupt its motion. But as calculations were made and simulations run, it became apparent that our current technology was woefully inadequate for such a task. We lacked the necessary firepower and machinery to inflict any meaningful damage upon the comet's core, let alone halt its inexorable march toward our planets. And so, as the military solo ships were dispatched once more to defend the twin planets, hope hung by a thread, and desperation gnawed at the edges of our resolve. The brave soldiers aboard the ships fought valiantly, engaging the comet at close range and peppering its surface with relentless volleys of fire. But with each pass, it became clear that our efforts were in vain, for the comet's sentient nature allowed it to anticipate our every move, dodging and weaving with the uncanny precision to evade our attacks. As the battle raged on, I watched from the safety of the science ship, my heart heavy with despair at the futility of our efforts. The comet seemed invincible, an unstoppable force of nature that swept aside all who dared to stand in its path. And as I looked out upon the twin planets below, their once thriving cities now reduced to smoldering ruins, I felt a profound sense of grief for the lives lost and the worlds destroyed by this relentless cosmic juggernaut. But even in the depths of despair, there remained a glimmer of hope, a spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. For as long as there were those among us who were willing to fight, to struggle against impossible odds in defense of all that we held dear, there was still a chance, however slim, that we might yet find a way to prevail. And so, as the battle of the twin planets raged on, I vowed to continue the fight, to stand shoulder to shoulder with my fellow inhabitants of the 10-ring planets, and do whatever it took to ensure that our solar system would not fall into darkness. For united we stood, and united we would remain, even in the face of the greatest challenges the universe could throw at us. As the war dragged on and the relentless advance of Comet Arios 236578 threatened to consume our solar system, the inhabitants of the twin planets, Kolu and Kola, found themselves caught in the throes of chaos and despair, with the transport team working tirelessly to evacuate as many people as possible. Tensions on the ground reached a boiling point, leading to mutiny and insurgency among the desperate masses clamoring to escape the doomed planets. On the ground, the scene was one of pandemonium and desperation. Crowds of frightened beings surged towards the transport ships, their cries of panic mingling with the sounds of gunfire and explosions as the ground team struggled to maintain order. Ships were damaged in the chaos, their hulls rent asunder by the frenzied mob, and backup transports were unable to be sent as the comet drew ever closer, casting a shadow of impending doom over the beleaguered planets. Amidst the turmoil, Dr. Wellington of the science team came to a startling realization. To counter the century-old energy of Comet Arius 236578, we would need a century-old energy of our own. And the only such energy available was the solar flares that the humans had stored to last them for eons. Since the treacherous departure of the tyrannical empire of Zienz, with all our wealth and solar energy, the humans had graciously shared their own solar flares with us, providing us with the light and energy we needed to survive. But now, faced with the prospect of using these precious reserves to combat the comet, the humans found themselves confronted with a dire choice: to sacrifice their own future for the sake of our survival. It was a decision that weighed heavily on the hearts and minds of every human aboard the ships. To exhaust their solar flares meant risking their own planet's survival, leaving them vulnerable to the cold embrace of space without the life-giving energy of the sun. And yet, to withhold this energy meant condemning countless beings to death on the twin planets below. In the end, it was a choice that could not be made lightly. The fate of an entire solar system hung in the balance, and the burden of that decision rested squarely on the shoulders of the human leaders. For the first time since their arrival, they faced a challenge that could not be overcome with brute force or technological prowess alone, a challenge that demanded sacrifice, courage, and unwavering resolve. As the deliberations continued, I watched from the science ship, my heart heavy with apprehension and fear for the future. The stakes could not be higher, and the consequences of our decision would reverberate throughout the cosmos for generations to come. But amidst the uncertainty and doubt, there remained a glimmer of hope, a belief that even in the darkest of times, the light of humanity would shine forth, illuminating the path to salvation and guiding us through the depths of despair to a brighter tomorrow. President Barta stood before the cameras, her voice echoing across the vast expanse of space to reach the ears of all those who listened. Her words carried the weight of the fate of not just the 7 remaining planets of the 10 ring, but of humanity itself. My fellow citizens of Earth, and to all those who stand with us across the 7 kingdoms, President Barta began, her voice steady and unwavering. We find ourselves faced with a threat unlike any we have ever known. The comet known as Arius 236578 hurtles towards us, its destructive force poised to annihilate everything in its path. She paused, allowing her words to sink in, knowing the gravity of the decision she was about to announce. But in times of crisis, it is not the strength of our weapons or the might of our armies that will see us through, but the depth of our resolve and the willingness to make sacrifices for the greater good. President Barta's words resonated with all who listened, stirring something deep within their hearts, a sense of duty, of honor, of solidarity in the face of adversity. The speech ended the insurgency on the twin planets Kolu and Kola, where chaos had reigned as people clamored to board the transport ships, fearing for their lives. But now, inspired by President Barta's call to action, unity prevailed once more. The transport ships were quickly repaired, their crews working tirelessly to ensure the safe evacuation of as many inhabitants as possible from the endangered planets. Cooperation replaced chaos, as everyone understood the importance of working together in the face of such dire circumstances. The military, too, found renewed purpose in President Barda's words. Soldiers stood tall and resolute, their commitment to protecting their fellow beings unwavering. They knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger and uncertainty, but they were ready to face whatever challenges came their way, secure in the knowledge that they fought not for glory or conquest, but for the simple yet profound ideal of preserving life itself. As the broadcast came to an end, a sense of solemn determination settled over the 10 ring planets. The path ahead would be difficult, fraught with peril and sacrifice, but as long as they stood united, there was hope. Hope for a future where the light of humanity would continue to shine brightly, even in the darkest of times. And with that hope in their hearts, they turned their gaze toward the stars, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. As preparations for the daring mission into the eye of the comet known as Arias 236578 were underway, tension gripped the ranks of both the human and allied forces. The stakes had never been higher, and the sacrifices demanded were monumental. The solar encasement, containing the precious solar flares amassed by humanity over millennia, rested heavily on the shoulders of a single battleship. Led by a fearless human general, the vessel stood as a beacon of hope amidst the darkness of impending doom. The general understood the gravity of his mission to pilot the ship directly into the heart of the comet, sacrificing himself in a bid to neutralize the threat. There was no room for hesitation or doubt. His resolve was absolute, fueled by the knowledge that countless lives depended on his actions. As the general prepared to embark on his final journey, a somber silence descended upon the assembled forces. Each soldier, human and non-human alike, bore witness to the courage and selflessness embodied by their leader. Though the path ahead was fraught with danger and uncertainty, they drew strength from his unwavering determination, steeling themselves for the trials that lay ahead. But even as the general prepared to face his fate, the rest of the fleet faced their own daunting task. In order to distract the sentient comet and provide cover for the solar encasement, they would need to engage it in close quarters combat. It was a risky gambit, one that would inevitably result in further losses and casualties among their ranks. Yet, there was no other choice. The survival of the 10 ring planets depended on their ability to keep the comet occupied long enough for the general to reach his target. With grim determination, the fleet mobilized, each vessel bracing itself for the inevitable clash that awaited. As the first salvos were fired and the battle erupted in earnest, chaos reigned across the battlefield. The comet, sensing the threat posed by the approaching fleet, lashed out with fury, unleashing torrents of energy that wreaked havoc among the Allied forces. Warships were torn asunder, their crews fighting bravely to the last, knowing that their sacrifices were not in vain. Amidst the chaos, the solar encasement pressed forward, its course set for the heart of the comet. Guided by the steady hand of the general, it moved ever closer to its target, each moment bringing them closer to the moment of truth. As the battle raged on, the sacrifices made by those on the front lines were not lost on those who watched from afar. On every planet of the Ten Ring, prayers were offered and tears shed for the brave souls who gave their lives in defense of their homes and loved ones. But amidst the sorrow, there was also hope, a hope that their sacrifices would not be in vain, that somehow, against all odds, they would emerge victorious against the relentless tide of destruction. And so, as the fleet continued to battle against the odds, the general and his crew prepared for their final, fateful encounter with the comet. With determination burning in their hearts, they steeled themselves for the ultimate sacrifice, knowing that the fate of the 10 ring planets hung in the balance. As the suicide warship, led by the courageous human general, plunged into the heart of the comet Arias 236578, a collective sense of hope washed over the inhabitants of the 10 ring planets. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as though victory was within their grasp, that the relentless threat poised to annihilate their homes had finally been neutralized. Across the 7 remaining planets, cries of jubilation erupted as news of the warship's sacrifice spread like wildfire. Citizens rejoiced, believing that they had been delivered from imminent destruction. Leaders and soldiers alike celebrated, basking in the euphoria of what they believed to be a hard-won triumph against overwhelming odds. But amidst the revelry, a sudden realization dawned upon Dr. Wellington and his team aboard the science ships. Despite the apparent destruction of the comet's core, ominous signs began to emerge from its depths. The absence of photon energy was replaced by a new, sinister radiance, a pulsating yellow glow that heralded the comet's resurgence. With growing dread, Dr. Wellington relayed his findings to the planet leaders and military commanders, his voice tinged with urgency. Yet his warnings were drowned out by the cacophony of celebration, the people's fervent belief in their victory blinding them to the looming danger. As the comet regained its strength, a sudden eruption of toxic photon energy burst forth, engulfing the surrounding space in a deadly maelstrom of destruction. Warships, transport vessels, and medical ships alike were torn asunder, their crews facing an agonizing fate as their vessels were consumed by the malevolent force. In the blink of an eye, the twin planets Kolu and Kola were obliterated, their once vibrant surfaces reduced to smoldering ruins. The loss of life was catastrophic, the toll of destruction unimaginable, as millions perished in the blink of an eye. The devastation rippled outward, striking the Oxyere planet with devastating force. Medical ships were torn from their moorings, careening helplessly through space as the planet itself was thrown into chaos. The once bustling hub of healing and recovery now lay in ruins, its inhabitants left to grapple with the overwhelming despair of their shattered world. Amidst the carnage, a somber silence descended upon the 10-ring planets. The jubilant cries of victory had been replaced by the agonized wails of the bereaved, the harsh reality of their situation crashing down upon them with unforgiving force. In the aftermath of the comet's resurgence, or so, the true cost of their hubris and complacency had been laid bare, leaving them to confront the harsh truth of their vulnerability in the face of cosmic forces beyond their comprehension. As darkness enveloped the once vibrant solar system, the remaining inhabitants of the 5 planets, Callus, Serphant, Vatu, Typur, and the remnants of Oxyere, found themselves teetering on the edge of oblivion. With their primary source of light extinguished and their infrastructure in ruins, they faced an uncertain future fraught with despair and hopelessness. The loss of the solar flares plunged the planets into a state of chaos and despair. Without the guiding light of their suns, the once bustling cities fell into darkness, their inhabitants left to wander the shadowy streets in search of solace and safety. The medical ships, once beacons of hope for the sick and injured, lay silent and inert, their life-saving capabilities extinguished by the devastating photon energy unleashed by the comet. The remnants of the military stood powerless against the relentless onslaught of the comet, their warships reduced to smoldering wrecks scattered across the void of space. With their communication systems destroyed and their forces decimated, they could offer little resistance against the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume them all. As the comet bore down upon the remaining planets with ever-increasing speed, panic and despair swept through the surviving population. With no means of escape and nowhere left to turn, many resigned themselves to their fate, their once indomitable spirit broken by the relentless onslaught of tragedy and despair. Yet, amidst the despair, a glimmer of hope emerged from the darkness. In the final moments, before the comet's inevitable impact, the inhabitants of the remaining planets were granted one last opportunity to reach out to their loved ones and say their farewells. For many, it was a chance to find closure and peace in the face of impending doom. As I reached out to my father one last time, his unwavering optimism and belief in the resilience of the human spirit filled me with a renewed sense of determination. Despite the overwhelming odds stacked against us, he remained convinced that humanity would find a way to prevail, no matter the cost. Inspired by his words, I joined my fellow survivors in a desperate bid to defy the darkness that threatened to consume us. With each passing moment, our resolve grew stronger, fueled by the knowledge that our collective survival depended on our ability to unite and overcome the seemingly insurmountable challenges that lay ahead. With the comet hurtling ever closer towards our homeworlds, we knew that the time for action was upon us. Drawing upon every ounce of strength and courage we possessed, we prepared to make our final stand against the forces of destruction that threatened to annihilate us. As I returned to my post, weary and disheartened by the events unfolding around us, I was greeted by the sight of Dr. Wellington smiling in the dim light of our makeshift command center. His expression was one of quiet determination, a stark contrast to the despair that had settled over us, like a shroud in the wake of our recent losses. "What's happening, Doctor?" I asked, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. "Well, my friend," he replied, his voice tinged with excitement, "I believe I may have found a solution to our problem." My heart leaped at his words, hope blossoming within me like a long-forgotten ember reignited by a gust of wind. For weeks, we had struggled against the relentless advance of the comet known as Arius 2365778. Our efforts to destroy it thwarted at every turn by its seemingly invincible defenses. If Dr. Wellington had indeed discovered a way to save us from certain destruction, it would be nothing short of a miracle. "What do you mean?" I asked, unable to keep the tremor of anticipation from my voice. His smile widened, and he motioned for me to join him at the console where he had been working. As I approached, he began to explain his plan. "Initially, our goal was to destroy the comet," he said, his fingers flying across the keyboard as he pulled up a series of data projections. "But after studying its composition more closely, I realized that there may be another way." I leaned in closer, studying the complex array of numbers and diagrams that danced across the screen before us. It was clear that Dr. Wellington had been hard at work, analyzing every scrap of information we had gathered about the comet in a desperate bid to find a solution to our predicament. "You see," he continued, pointing to a particular set of data points, "the comet contains a significant amount of antimatter, which poses a considerable threat to us. However, during the suicide mission led by the human general, the comet expelled a large portion of this antimatter in the form of photons." I frowned, trying to make sense of his words. "But wouldn't that make the comet even more dangerous?" Dr. Wellington shook his head, a gleam of excitement in his eyes. "Not necessarily. You see, the expulsion of the antimatter has left behind a surplus of pure solar energy within the comet. If we can find a way to harness this energy and stabilize it, we could potentially use the comet as a new source of power for our planetary system." My mind raced as I considered the implications of his words. If Dr. Wellington's plan succeeded, it could mean salvation for our beleaguered civilization. No longer would we be dependent on the tyrannical empire of Gens for our energy needs. We would have our own limitless source of power, derived from the very comet that had once threatened to destroy us. As the plan to pilot the planets into position to stabilize the comet known as Arius 2365778 was set into motion, a flurry of activity ensued across the remaining 5 planets of the solar system. With time running short and the threat of the comet looming ever closer, the human engineers worked tirelessly to connect the control systems of the remaining ships to the planetary cores. On Callus, the last transportation ships were prepared for their monumental task. These vessels, once used to ferry goods and passengers across the vast expanse of space, were now repurposed to serve as the guiding force behind the movement of the planet itself. Led by a team of skilled pilots and engineers, they set out on their mission with determination and resolve. Meanwhile, on Surfont, the last engineering ships were readied for their role in piloting the planet. These vessels, equipped with state-of-the-art technology and manned by some of the brightest minds in the galaxy, worked in tandem with their counterparts on Callus to ensure a coordinated effort in guiding the planets to their destination. On Oxier, the last remaining medical ships prepared for their journey. These vessels, once used to provide aid and assistance to those in need, now stood as beacons of hope in the face of adversity. Manned by a dedicated team of doctors and scientists, They braced themselves for the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that their efforts would play a crucial role in ensuring the success of the mission. On Vatu and Thyper, the last military ships stood ready to defend the planets against any potential threats along the way. Armed to the teeth and manned by highly trained soldiers and tacticians, they formed a protective barrier around the planets, ensuring their safe passage through the treacherous depths of space. As the ships set out on their journey, a sense of anticipation filled the air. The fate of the entire solar system hung in the balance, and every individual knew that they had a role to play in ensuring its survival. With each passing moment, the comet drew closer, its menacing presence a constant reminder of the danger that loomed overhead. But despite the odds stacked against them, the people of the 5 remaining planets pressed on, their determination unwavering in the face of adversity, for they knew that failure was not an option, and that they would stop at nothing to ensure the safety and prosperity of their home. As the ships neared their destination, the tension reached its peak. Every eye was trained on the massive celestial body that loomed before them, its dark and foreboding presence casting a shadow over the entire solar system. But as the last transportation ships made their final adjustments, a sense of hope began to stir within the hearts of all who watched. And then, with a sudden burst of energy, the planets began to move, slowly at first, but then with increasing speed, they surged forward, guided by the skillful hands of the pilots and engineers who manned the ships. It was a sight to behold, a testament to the power of cooperation and ingenuity in the face of overwhelming odds. As the planets reached their designated positions, a collective sigh of relief swept across the solar system. The comet had been stabilized, its destructive path halted in its tracks, and as its radiant light filled the skies, illuminating the darkness that had shrouded the planets for so long, a sense of triumph washed over the people below, for they had faced the greatest challenge of their lives and emerged victorious. And though the road ahead would undoubtedly be fraught with challenges and obstacles, they knew that as long as they stood together, there was nothing they could not overcome. And so, as the last transportation ships returned to their home planets, their mission complete, they were greeted with cheers and applause from all who watched, for they had not only saved their own homes, but had also forged a bond that would endure for generations to come. As the people of the solar system looked up at the glowing comet above, they knew that their future was brighter than ever before. And as they basked in its warm radiance, they knew that no matter what trials lay ahead, they would face them together as one united and indomitable force. As the radiant glow of the stabilized comet illuminated the once darkened skies of the solar system, a sense of relief and gratitude washed over the remaining 5 planets. For so long, they had faced the looming threat of destruction. But now, thanks to the bravery and ingenuity of the humans, they had emerged victorious. As the people of the planets looked up at the glowing comet above, they couldn't help but feel a profound sense of awe and wonder. It was a symbol of hope and resilience, a testament to the power of cooperation and unity in the face of adversity. But amidst the celebrations and jubilation, there was a sense of humility among the humans. They had not sought fame or fortune for their actions, nor had they expected any reward in return. Instead, they had acted out of a sense of duty and compassion, driven by the belief that all life in the universe was worth protecting. And so, when the people of the planets offered to repay the humans with wealth and resources, they graciously declined. They had all they needed, they said, and their only wish was to see their fellow beings thrive and flourish once more. Instead, the people of the planets made a different offer. They asked to collect some solar energies from the comet to aid them in their journey across the galaxies, to explore new worlds and seek out new opportunities for growth and discovery. The humans, touched by this gesture of friendship and trust, agreed to the proposal. They saw it as an opportunity to forge an even stronger bond with their fellow inhabitants of the solar system, to work together towards a brighter and more prosperous future for all. And so, an agreement was signed, making the humans co-owners of the comet known as Arias 2-36578. It was a symbol of the newfound alliance between the planets and the humans, a testament to their shared determination to overcome any challenge that lay ahead. As the story of human bravery spread throughout the solar system, it became a source of inspiration and hope for generations to come. It was a reminder that in the darkest of times, there was always light to be found, and that as long as they stood together, there was nothing they could not achieve. And so, as I look out at the glowing comet above, I know that this tale will be etched in our history for all times. It will serve as a reminder of the power of courage and compassion, of the strength that lies within each and every one of us to shape our own destiny. And as I pass this story down to my children and their children after them, I know that it will continue to inspire and uplift all who hear it for generations to come.